Let's go ahead and start that. All right, so welcome everybody to the call. Again, my name is Franklin. I'm with Blend. We are the vendor behind this new point of sale technology that your organization is going to be rolling out here. And I believe each of you will be getting access here very shortly. So this is the first of two sessions. We're going to do one today. We're going to do one tomorrow. We're going to cover different things in each. So for this session today, I'm going to take you through what we call the borrower side of the platform. So I'm going to create a loan as if I'm a customer, and I'm going to walk through the application. I'm going to talk a little bit about the design, why we have it built the way that we do, some of the intelligence that we have in there. And the whole point of it is just to demo that borrower side to get you comfortable with what it looks like so that you can start driving your customers through that experience, okay? So let's get started without any further ado. So before I start pulling this information up, I'll just give you a little background about Blend. We are here in California, based up in San Francisco. We are about 60, probably a little bit more than that, almost maybe 70% of our company is comprised of product and engineers. So very smart men and women that are working on this process. So we're constantly building it out, iterating it. Got a lot of great intelligence in here. Our focus has been today really on the borrower side of the platform. So you'll see a lot of that within this demo today. But what we're constantly working on is to create tools for loan officers as well. So that's stuff that we're working on kind of in a future state. Okay. So here where I'm at right now is your pipeline. When you get access to the platform, you'll get here in this pipeline. You can see this is where all your new applications will exist. So you have a couple different ways you can get a customer into the platform. I know you guys are going to have some really dialed in internal processes, typically to go through an apply now link, maybe something that's going to be on your website. Customers obviously can click those links and get into the application process. So that's probably the most traditional way that you're getting leads into the process. But there is an option for you to send them a personalized invite. Now, this might not be your process. It's a little labor intensive, but I'm obviously going to use it for this demo because I can talk through and create a user while we're on the call here. So on the top right, whenever you're in your pipeline, you have a new loan button, and that's going to allow you to add a user to your pipeline directly. Okay, so put in the email address, first and last name. I'm going to assign it to myself as the originator, and then I'm just going to click create. So when I do that, it's going to create a record. So I've created a record here for Bobby Borrower. It takes me to the setup screen, and the setup screen is how would you like to complete this application. So tomorrow, in the session tomorrow, in the second session, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can potentially pre-fill some of the information before you send an invite to your customer. We have an application page here. But in this section, I'm just going to show you how to send an invite that's just going to give them a link to create an account and go through the process without you pre-filling any data. But you have options there, okay? So for this path, we're going to select number one. You don't have to worry about your application template. You hit submit. It's going to take you to the second screen. This is really just informational. Okay, this doesn't go to the customer. They don't see this list. This is all behind the scenes. This is a little bit of our intelligence. So as you start the process, we start with this full list of requested items. And as they go through the application and answer questions, I'm going to start ticking those off. And I'm only going to be left with the applicable items at the very end of the process. So when they hit submit, I'm going to automatically present a needs list to them. And within that needs list, I'm going to base that on how they answered questions. So an example would be pay stub and W-2. I'm going to ask for that if they say their salary. They're not salary, I'm not going to ask for that. Okay? So you start with this long list, and then as they go through the process, I'm going to start kind of dialing that in. Now, the final screen I get to is just showing you what's going to be sent to your customer. So I personalize it. Hi, Bobby. Thanks for choosing Ascent Mortgage. Okay? I have some canned text in there. And you have the ability to personalize it if you like, okay? You can leave it blank however you want. Now, again, these steps are not required to get a customer into this application process. It will work with all the links, okay, that'll be applicable and set up for your organization. Again, I'm just showing you this path for this demo. It's an option if you'd like to send a personalized invite via email, but it's not the only way you can get them in, okay? So I'm gonna hit submit, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna send an email to that email address that I plugged in for the customer. So now I'm gonna move over to the this email that I have created for all my test lots. A couple things I wanna point out, okay? Number one, it is immediate, okay? So this system, just a theme throughout the system is that it's very fast, okay? And as we go through this, either on the borrower side or on your side, you'll see that we have a very nice responsiveness as you go through it. So you could be on the phone with your customer. If you wanted to go through this process, you could be on the phone with them and send them an invite in this manner, okay? And as soon as you hit submit, it's gonna immediately send that invite, okay? That's an option. You can see that it comes from Ziplend, okay? So we white label this product. We brand it for your organization. It's not gonna come from Blend. Customers don't know who Blend is or what Blend is. We're an industry vendor, okay? And we do that by design. So we obviously want it to come from Ziplend. We make pains to make sure this information does not go into spam and junk folders either, okay? So I come from the mortgage business. I spent many years doing mortgages before I came to Blend, and this was a pain point for me personally. I had a solution that I can think of specifically that was a POS for the LOS, right? It was just a nice front-end solution, and it was okay, but half the time my customers never got the notifications from it because it dropped into their spam folder or their junk mail, and then, you know, forget about it. You might as well have never sent it to them at that point, okay? So on top of us making sure that it's branded accurately, we want to make sure the customer gets it, because if they don't get it, you know, we got bigger issues. So again, you got the nice Ziplend logo up here, links to that marketing effort we have, making sure the customers are familiar with you and your organization. So we want to keep that theme going. Again, here's the email. Hi, Bobby. Thanks for choosing Ziplend by Ascent. Great meeting you today. And a nice big button for them to click in and create an account. Okay. Now we like big buttons at Blend. It's just kind of, it lends into our design philosophy. Okay. So in this flow, again, the customer is, I've already put in their email address as their username. I'm always going to use their email address as their username. It's the easiest to remember. And, you know, if they forget their password at a later date, because they're going to create an account here, they can self-serve. They can send themselves an email to that email address and get back into their account. Okay, so we want to give them a little bit of self-service. There's a little philosophy of self-service through this process, because customers are coming in digitally because they want to self-serve to some degree, okay? We're not taking you out of the process, because obviously you're going to be there, and I'm going to show you where you're all throughout this process as a loan officer and a loan team. But for some of the little stuff, you know, you don't necessarily want them calling you and saying, hey, I forgot my password. Not much you're going to do about it. They can help themselves there. Now that, you know, we do give them some copy here. It's Helmet Secure. Security is top of mind for anyone that's doing anything digitally today. Okay, they're getting bombarded with breach information left and right. We tell them that we have a very secure process, and I'm going to show you in the platform where we show them about our security certifications. We save their information as they go through the platform, so they auto-save. They don't have to save. They don't have to think about hitting a save button. Another pain point with some of these systems, I know a very popular one that requires someone to save, and we've gotten some feedback in the past where users go through that, and that they don't save, they lose all their info. Right? Your power goes out, you know, you need to walk away, you forget to hit a button. Okay, we've all been there. You certainly don't want to go through that process in a mortgage application. So we save for them. They don't have to worry about saving. And of course, we have direct to source connectivity points I'll show you, and that gives us less paperwork to go through with a nice big button for them to activate. I surface some terms and conditions to them up front. I want to get that out of the way. I don't want to break the process flow here. Okay, so everything in this platform is designed to get a customer to submit. And we see pull-through rates as high as 80%, because we make it so nice, soft, and easy for them to go through with this guided process. But part of our intelligence here, or our design, I should say, is that we don't want to break the flow up. I don't want to have them going through the process and then ask them for a doc. I don't want to have them going through the process and then say, oh, here's the disclosure, right? As much as possible, I want to get that out of the way in the beginning. And now let's get into your application workflow. So I take them into a loan hub. I give them a time commitment. Let's get started. It can take as little as 20 minutes to fill out. Okay, and on average, we're seeing 20, 30 minutes on average for customers to go through this process. Okay, so it can take it really as little as 10. 5 to 10 minutes if you know what you're doing. If you've done this a couple times before, but we're going to guide them through the process and make it nice and easy. So here I am in your Loan Hub. I give them a couple tasks. We're going to go into that here in a second. That's the application process. I do give them some milestones as they relate to the application process. I'm going to keep showing them where they are in this application workflow process. And then I've got some contact information. Okay, now I'm set up in this as a super user, if you will, and this is our test environment, so it doesn't show anything specific to me. But if I was set up in here as a loan officer, it would have my name, it would have my NMLS, my phone number, my email address, my headshot. It would be personalized for me so that my customer could contact me whenever they needed to. Because again, you're driving them into this experience. So I'm not disconnecting you from this experience, right? However they get here, they click a link, you send it to them, whatever the case may be, you're going to be right here front and center for them to contact. Now, Start Application button gets them into our application workflow. So again, we have a nice soft look and feel here. I don't want it to look anything like a 1003. I don't want to throw a bunch of fields at them and just forms and say, go at it, right? I want to guide them through the process as much as possible. And again, nice big buttons. I don't want them to be confused where they go next in each of these screens. And then within the first couple screens, bam, again, I hit them again with your information, okay? So I'm letting them know if you've got questions or concerns, this is who you get in touch with. This is your loan officer. This is who you're working with, okay? The name, the NMLS, the number, the headshot will all be there, okay? Because again, I'm setting the expectation that you shouldn't need help, but if you do run into anything that you need some help with, reach out to your loan team, right? Reach out to your loan officer. Now, as soon as I hit continue, that's going to move it forward through the process and onto the next screen. But there is a little question bubble down here, we like to call it. And if the customer clicks on that, that's going to be available to them throughout the entire process. And your information will always be available to them on that section, okay? And we also have a concept called loan teams. I'll talk about that a little bit in the second session. But if you're working with somebody on a loan team in a nice one-to-one relation, you may want to add them here to this contact section so that your customer can contact them as well if you're out of the office, okay? We'll talk a little bit about that more in the second session, but I just want to show you that you're always going to be available. And here in a little bit, I'm going to show you how you can help a customer as they're in this experience in a very direct way, okay? A more direct way than I've ever seen that's going to give you a sense of confidence that if your customer gets stuck in here, which I'm pretty confident they won't, but if they do, you're going to be able to really get hands-on and help them through the process, okay? So we have 3 key points of intelligence I like to point out. Number 1 is we have a guided workflow. So of course, as I answer this question, are you doing a purchase and refi? I'm going to take you through a guided path. I'm going to ask you purchase specific questions. So I'm going to say I'm doing a purchase money loan here. Some data has been filled out already because of course I sent the invite here and I put Bobby's name in. Now you'll notice as I start to put the phone number in, if I move forward without giving them all the digits, it is going to stop me. So we do have required fields on each of these screens. But what you will not see is anything that denotes that's a required field. I don't put an asterisk on there. I'm not telling them, hey, this is where you need to put something. And the reason we do that is by design. We found that when you put those asterisks beside fields, customers will just cherry pick, and they'll just drop information in those certain fields and move on. Okay, I want a complete application. So 1, I want to make it nice and easy for you. I don't put too much data on here so they don't feel overwhelmed and they have to go through and answer 20 questions before you go to the next screen, okay? And the next piece is, okay, if it's easy for you to answer the questions, whether or not it's required or not, you can just go ahead and answer the questions. Now, if they click continue, I'm going to tell them what's required. If they only put partial information in a field, I'm going to tell them it's a required field, okay? But not every field is required. Now, when I get down to address, as I start to type the address in, you'll see we have what we call geolocation, powered by Google, embedded in this platform. So this exists anywhere that I'm asking for an address. This exists on the borrower side here, anywhere they're going to put an address in, I'm going to give them the ability to use geolocation. And again, tomorrow in the second session, I'm going to show you how you can pre-fill some information, like if you were taking a phone application, for example, and any of those address fields that I have, I'm going to have geolocation for you as well as a step saver. So it really helps out in a couple different ways, right? Number 1 is it saves these additional steps. So here I am in San Francisco. As I start pulling up the information, it's going to pull up the addresses around me. It's editable, okay? If it's new construction, if it's, if it's a rural property, maybe this is not pulling the right information. They can change it if they need to. But the likelihood it's going to pull the right information is pretty high, and it saves them the steps of having to put all that info in there. And you get more accuracy in your application process. The other reason this is great is because we are 100% mobile. We are device responsive, okay? So you can do a desktop, laptop, tablet, mobile device. You can do 100% of your application on the phone. You can collect 100% of your conditions on the phone. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on today and more in the second session. Okay, but when's the last time you've had to put your entire address on your phone when you're using anything on a mobile device? Okay, you just don't do it anymore. So of course we wanted to have that geolocation to support that effort. The next thing I did too is I asked Bobby, are you going to apply with another applicant? So we always start with one, which makes sense, right? You're only going to have one person click on the apply now link. You're only going to send an invite to one person. Okay, so I start with one customer. And then I'm going to ask that customer, are you applying with someone else? And if they say yes, I'm going to guide them through a process where I confirm jointness. So if they say that they are jointly applying with this individual, then I'll keep them on the same application and they can move forward. Okay. If I say that they are not applying jointly, if they're maybe a co-applicant, right, an investment property scenario, kitty condo, who knows, then I'm going to actually send an invite to that co-applicant for them to log in, and I'm going to keep their information completely separate. Okay, so they're going to go through the application process separate, and the conditions I'll keep separate as well. Okay, you're going to see them as one on your end. It's going to come out of the system as one loan, but it's on two separate applications. Okay, so we support both workflows. I give them a review screen at the end of every section, and when they hit continue, I give them a nice checkbox to let them know that they're moving forward. Now, those review screens came from customer feedback. Sometimes they're a little confused as to where they can go back and edit information. So I give them a review at every section, and then at the very end of the process, before they submit the application, I give them a one-page scroll where they can look at all the data that they've put in. So since I'm doing a purchase, I'm going to ask them the applicable purchase information. Of course, we support multiple property types. We support multiple property uses. Now, for customers that are under contract or ready to make an offer, I make that particular distinction, okay? Have you made an offer on a particular property, or are you ready to make one? If they say yes, then I'm going to ask for the property address and the property value, okay, on that property. If they say no, then I'm not going to ask for that information, and they can move forward as if it's a TBD, okay? But if they say yes, they're going to give me their property address, their property value, and that's going to potentially trigger trade at that point because you have your 6 pieces of information. If they say no, I'm not asking for that information, and they can continue on as if it's a TBD. Now, to support that TBD experience, I also tell them that estimates are fine if you don't know exact amount for purchase price. I can tell you right here, if I put $1 down, I'm not going to stop the customer at this point. Okay, this product is program agnostic. I don't know what program they're trying to go through, what product they want. Okay, and my intent is not to stop them. Yes, I have some required fields, but the required fields are stuff they should know because it's their personal information. Okay? They don't know a lot about purchase price and down payment. Okay. So it's not going to hard stop them if they don't put the right amounts in here. They do need to put something, okay? But they can put $1 or move forward. I ask them if they're using any part for a gift. I'm going to drop some information in here because we have some intelligence around the gift letter that I want to show you. So I'm going to say that I have a $10,000 gift, and I want to show you what that looks like when we get to the very end of this process. I ask them if they're using a real estate agent. And if they are, then I'm just going to ask for their realtor's first and last name. Email address and phone number are not required. Great if they give it to me. And I'll show you in the second session where you could pull that information through on your pipeline if you wanted to view it. I put in social, date of birth. And then you have these contextual help tips. these little help tips down here. We've strategically placed these in the platform where our data has shown that customers either stall out, okay, they get confused in the process, or they drop out completely. And as I said, we never want them to leave this application process, right? So we've dropped this contextual help tips in here for a little bit of self-service. And it's really low-hanging fruit stuff, like why am I asking for your social and date of birth? How are we protecting your data? Now, this is a Blend-specific contextual help because obviously we're on the hook for protecting the data. But here they could come in here and read about our highest level of security and compliance standards, including the certifications that we have, okay? All right, now I'm going into the asset section. This is the first of 3 points of direct-to-source connectivity that we have, and it's the only piece that's embedded in the application workflow. Okay, everything else, the other 2 points that we have for pay stubs and tax returns, we ask for those at the end of the process. But here we are at the very end. Here we are in the asset section, and I'm going to allow the customer to connect directly to their bank account if they so desire. So here on the landing page, I've got the top 8 banks by deposits, okay? But we support, or we connect to, I don't know, 75, 9,000 different financial institutions, banks, credit unions, you name it. So if they start to type in here at this top section, they can go here and search through and pull in their bank, or if they use one of the bigger ones, they can click on the tile and pull that information up. Now, I am going to ask for their username and their password to connect directly into their bank account. And I did give some copy up there that I went through pretty quickly, but told them that this is, I'm not saving these credentials. We can't move money through accounts. It's a temporary read-only access at this point, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm going right into their bank account, and I'm just pulling data in. So it's a very seamless process for the customer, okay? I'm surfacing all their accounts that they have with their bank. So at Bank of America, Bobby has 3 different accounts. I let them know if you don't want to use one of those, you can remove them. It's very easy to do. Otherwise, you can just click continue, and I've pulled that information through automatically. Now, Bobby can move on. His assets are done. And I'm going to show you what we're pulling through, but we're not pulling 2 months bank statements through. We're pulling through what's called a generated asset statement, okay? This is Fannie Freddie VA accepted. It's day 1 certified accepted, okay? It's a 60-day transactional history, and it's got a nice formatting, consistency in the formatting of the document and all that good stuff. So I'm going to show you that when we get to the end. But what I also want to show you is what happens if a customer doesn't want to connect, right? What if they don't want to put their credentials in? I'll say we're seeing some high rates of connectivity across some of our customer base, as high as 80% in some cases. Customers are getting a little bit more familiar with this, and with day 1 certainty in our business, it's becoming a lot more common. But you will get customers that may not want to put that data in there. It's still very personal. So if they don't want to drop that in, I'll use another example. I'll use Chase as an example. We're always going to give them the ability to add the account themselves. Down here at the bottom, add the account myself, and then it's just a manual process for them to select the account type and put the amount in. And what you're going to see when we get down to the very end is how we condition differently between Bank of America and Chase, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to that point. So now we're at income. Income is a historically difficult section for the customers, or it can be from a mortgage perspective, especially if they're making variable income like overtime or commission or bonus, self-employed, if they're 1099. Sometimes you get a lot of questions. What do you want to put in here? What's the amount? We have some nice contextual help down here. What type of income do I have? Okay, it's the most click contextual help that we have in the platform from my understanding. But if the customer still has questions, they can contact their loan team, and here you are. So what happens if they contact you? So again, I'll just go back to my experience when I worked in the business, and I had to work with a customer who was stuck somewhere in these digital solutions. I had to kind of sit on the phone with them and say, where are you? What screen are you looking at? Where are you stuck? What's going on? I didn't have any access to it. I'm kind of a hands-on guy. Just learn, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. And hey, listen, that's not always the most productive way to go, but you know, when you need to fix something and when your name and face is all over it, you want to at least have the ability, okay, even if you don't execute it often, you want to have the ability to jump in and fix something a little more directly, okay? So we gave a very direct access to you through a process we call co-piloting. So here I am in as Bobby. I'm going to do a split screen real quick. I'm going to jump back over and I'm going to the LO pipeline. So over here on the left, okay, this is Bobby's view, okay? This is what it looks like on a phone, by the way. I'm going to do a mobile demo tomorrow in the second session, show you what I actually pull it up on my phone and clear some conditions. This is what it looks like, okay? It stacks nicely, and again, you can do 100% on your phone. Over here to the right, I'm in as LO. So Franklin LO, I'm in my pipeline. Bobby gives me a call. I jump in. I click on Bobby's loan. The first screen I go to is the overview screen, and I have Copilot at the top right. When I click on that Copilot button, so I don't even need to go far. I just jump into that loan. Copilot's right there. I click that button, and it automatically links me with Bobby's screen. So here I am linked with Bobby in the process directly. And I can say, hey, Bobby, I see you're on the income screen. You know what? You're employed. Go ahead and click the employment tile. And you'll notice that when Bobby clicks his side, my side moves forward in real time. So you can actually help the customer through the process visually. But we also take it a step further and say, you know what, Bobby, since I'm here on the screen with you, let me go ahead. It's going to take all day if I tell you where to go. Let me go ahead and just drop in some information. So you will actually be able to edit some of this information for your customer if you like. And when I hit the add income, you're going to see that it now adds the income over here on Bobby's side as well. So if Bobby's on his phone, he gives you a call, he's confused, you jump on your desktop and you go into Copilot and you help him out. Okay, so this is your ability to directly help out the customer through the experience through that Copilot. Okay, now, you know, hopefully you're looking at this and going, it's very easy, it's seamless, it's guiding the customer through the process. I'm sure you're also telling yourself throughout the process that, hey, you know, I'm sure I'll have some customers that might get stuck somewhere in here. Okay, so this is why we give you the ability to come in here very directly and help out. Okay, now, customer can see that you're in there, right? Because again, as I move my screen, customer screen moves forward in real time, okay? So you want them to be aware of that. But again, this is the ability for you to do that directly. Now, you didn't see field level copying, right? So as I was typing in the information for employment, you didn't see it on the left side for Bobby. A couple reasons for that. You know, well, really one primary reason for it. There's 3 places you cannot Copilot. The asset section, you cannot Copilot. You can watch the customer while they're on that screen. You can guide them visually, but you can't see what they're putting in their username and password. Okay, we want to make sure that we're keeping that level of security there. And you can't put it in there for them and you can't see what they're putting in. Okay, so that's one part you can't Copilot. The other 2 pieces you can't Copilot is you can't e-consent for them, which we do gather e-consent. I'll show you a little later in the process. And you can't credit consent for them. You can't hit the last submit button, because I get credit consent and they have to do that. So I'll show you where that is later in the process as well. So those 3 points you can't use Copilot for, but everything else you can use Copilot for. So the question is, does Copilot work on mobile or desktop only? So Copilot for the loan officer is a desktop activity. For the customer, they can be on any device. Okay, so they can be on their phone. You'd want to be on a desktop or a laptop. If you guys have tablet access, it can work on a tablet. So for right now, we are working on some capacity for a mobile application section for the loan officer. Today, you can pull it up on your phone. It's in the cloud, but it's not sizing at all. So, you know, it's for the best you want to be on your desktop or your laptop. Yeah, the customer can be in any device. Question. All right, so Now we're into the real estate owned section. So we get some momentum going. I've done assets, I've done income, I've given you some of my information. I'm going into REO. Now I'm not going to drop information into the REO, but I do want to show you what I like to say is the second piece of the intelligence. So the first piece is I have the guided process. The next piece is we have field level intelligence built in here. And this again speaks to, I don't want to surface too much to the customer at once because that may overwhelm them, right? If you just throw a bunch of fields at them, they may not give you all the information you want, right? So I try to suppress information and make it intelligent based on how they answer questions. So here I am in the REO, pretty standard REO stuff, property type, how do you currently use a property? How will you use it after the transaction? All that stuff exists. But I start with 0 mortgages. And if the customer says I have 2 mortgages on this property, well, then I'm going to ask for those 2 mortgage payments. If they say they have 5 mortgages on that property, then I'm going to ask for 5 mortgage payments, okay? If they say that property is a condo with 5 mortgages on it, then I'm going to ask for the association dues on top of the 5 mortgage payments, okay? So again, I don't surface that information until they enter it in because I don't want to just throw a bunch of fields at the customer and then say, all right, hit an ad, hit an ad, hit an ad, okay? I want to make it as intelligent as possible. For declarations, we make it as easy as possible for them here as well. So first of all, I've got toggles that works very nicely for a mobile device. Okay, customer can be on their phone. I don't give them those little radio buttons that you typically see where they have to kind of, try to hit a button. No, you got a nice toggle. Everything's marked to no because they're reading this stuff. Okay, they actually read these declarations. They don't do this every single day. So I feel pretty comfortable. I can toggle it to no. And if they do say yes to anything, then I'm going to require them to put something in this field. Okay, so if they say they're a party to the lawsuit, they're going to give me some information. Now, this is information for you and your loan team. I'll show you where this actually exists when we talk about the lender side later, but it is good intel, at least in the beginning, if they say yes to any of this stuff. Ask about citizenship as it applies to the declaration section, and then I say continue on and on to demographic information. So for demographic information, we do have HMDA 2018 enabled in here, which means we have all the applicable ethnicities and race options available, and they're all open and editable for your customer. They can select as many as they identify and move forward. And now I'm at the very last section, which we have ambiguously titled additional questions. So as we went through this process, you may have noticed there was a couple of items that we did not ask about. I did not ask about level of education. I didn't ask about dependents. I didn't ask about 2-year residence history. We used to put those further in the front of the process, kind of the way that the 1003 is structured. But we found that customers were actually dropping out of the experience when we put it further up because, if you're asking them about the level of education early in the process before you even really get down into the nuts and bolts of of why you want to get a loan, then they have everything else better to do than sit here and go through your application, okay? So we've stacked those at the end, and now I've got nice momentum, right? Customer has clicked all these sections off. Now I'm just going to play cleanup with a couple of real low-level questions. So now I need to ask about your 2-year residence history. And again, I've got some field-level intelligence here. If you say you own your current property, I surface those REO fields. If you say you rent, then I'm going to ask for your rental amount, your landlord info. Maybe I can start on the VOR, right? Not required, but you can get it, great. And if you say you live rent-free, I don't ask for anything. Have you owned any property in the last 3 years? That nice deck page question. I have a toggle to no because you said you didn't have any REO and you don't own your current property. Again, if you click yes, then you can edit it, right? 2-year employment history. I'm going to ask this for every customer, whether or not you put greater than 2 years on your employment, just to validate that information. If it's less than 2 years, I'm not going to stop them. Certain programs allow less than 2 years. There's other income types, fixed income, retirement, whatever the case may be. So again, my point is not really to stop them if this information is incorrect. I just want it in here, okay? So if they validate that it's correct, great, they can continue to move forward. When you pull this data out of this platform, then you can have you can review and have the discussion with the customer that says, I may or may not have a product for you. if you've only been on your job for X amount of days. Level of education, I ask conversationally, right? Customers don't like to do math. You don't like to do math. I don't like to do math. So, what's your level of education? And it comes out into Encompass very nicely once you pull it out of the system. Okay, so it does come out as a number. Number of dependents, I support up to 10 plus. And what's great about this is if I put any dependents in here, the ages are required fields. Okay, so that's a dirty little trick of the 1003 where, we ask for their age and for some reason it's tough to get that information from customers. So we make it a required field. Once they're done with that and they click continue, all right, now I'm done with the application process, right? So I kick them back out to this loan hub. I tell them that first milestone is complete, which is fill out the application. And the next milestone is going to be review and submit. So hopefully as you sat here and watched me go through this process, you're kind of internalizing how easy it is to go through, right? Again, it's a nice guided process. I've got that guided intelligence. I've got that field level intelligence. And, we're really designed to get a customer all the way through to submit. Now, going to the next milestone, which is review and submit, I'm going to get e-consent. We have a direct integration with DocuSign in this platform, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Probably a little bit more in the second session. We talk about conditions in a little greater detail. But we do like to get e-sign up front from the customer. We have a very, very high e-consent rate, 99.6%, I believe, last time we checked. The reason for that, I think, is because, one, I've got them click trained at this point, right? They're ready to go. The other is if they click, I do not consent. I do hit them again and say that's fine, but if you decline, just know that it could slow your process down. And we want to have, we want to create efficiencies here. And one of our key efficiencies is this ability to electronically deliver documentation to your customer, right? And get docs back from them. So we want to make sure that we're trying to get them to consent as much as possible. Now, they always have the option to not consent, okay? But I do hit them with that information there in an effort to try to do that with open eyes. So here is their last time to go through and review all their information, edit anything they need. What's great about this is if I hit edit, it just takes me right back to that screen. I can make changes to it, and then it'll drop me right back to the end of this application process. I don't have to go all the way through the workflow again. And when I click continue, it is to the very last section, which is submit. Now, I do tell the customer that by clicking submit, you are authorizing us to obtain a copy of your credit report. You're getting credit consent by them hitting submit, okay? Now, you're not pulling credit automatically when they click submit. So if your customer calls you and goes, I'm not ready for you to pull my credit, don't worry. You're not pulling credit when they hit submit. But they are authorizing you to pull credit at a later date because they're giving you a completed application. So, that's why we let them know that by clicking submit, they're consenting to credit pull. Now, we do ask this one question, very common in the electronic services industry. How likely are you to recommend using this online application to a friend? Okay, 0 to 10. And, this is really a great question for you as well. I mean, we share this with our clients. How are the clients that are going through Ziplend, right? How are they going through this process and saying, how are they grading it? Because if they're going to recommend it to a friend, they're not going to recommend Blend to a friend, right? You don't see Blend anywhere on the screen, right? They're going to be recommending you in this process. Now, we use it, obviously. We like this data. We mine this data. This is constantly running in our offices all the time. We have a Slack channel dedicated to this information, giving us customer feedback, and everybody's in it and looking at it, and it's really good info, okay? Now, from all the applications we went through in 2017, as I understand it, we ended up with an average 9.1 out of 0 to 10 score. So I tell you all that information, and I wanted to take the time to go through the borrower side of this process here in the very beginning. Even though there's not a lot of activity for you, like I said, you could send your customer a link, right? You can say, go to My Apply Now. They cannot even talk to you, really. They could go click it themselves and go through this application process. I mean, there's potential you haven't even spoken to this customer yet, or if you have, very briefly, right? And they've just gone through this on their own. But I wanted to show you that information because I want you to get comfortable sending them through it, okay? If you're not sending them through it, they're not going through it, right? Unless they just trip and fall and happen into it. Now, I'm sure you guys will be running some campaigns and things like that on the marketing side to get people driving in here, and they'll be coming in droves. Of that, I have no doubt. Okay, but I did want to just take an opportunity to show you that customers are giving us nice high scores here, and whenever they select, we have an opportunity to drop the information in here. And the most common feedback that we get is that it was easy, and we are seeing that across all age ranges. So a lot of the feedback we get, especially, I'm out in the field every day. I do this all the time, talk to loan officers and assistants and processors and, about this product. And a lot of feedback we get is, oh, this would be great for my millennial, clients, but not everyone's going to like this. Not everyone's going to want it. The feedback we get across the line, regardless of age, is that it's an easy process. And the score that we get here, these 9s and 10s, we're not seeing any trends from an age perspective there. Okay. So obviously you're seeing it's a nice guided process. It's very similar to other things that are out there today, very common in the industry, that make it easy for people to go through. If anything, right, it's designed for people that don't do this every day. Okay. People that need that little bit of an additional help and step through. Okay. Now, once I submit that final section, it kicks me right back out to the lending page. I tell them that I have the 2 of 3 milestones are completed. They've completed their application. They review and submitted the application. But then the last step is document, upload, and loan team review. So I automatically surface a needs list to them, okay, based on how they went through the experience. Now, based on where your customer is in the process, you can't require them to provide documentation, okay? Obviously, they've submitted their application. If it's a TRID app, your clock starts, okay? I'm going to talk a lot on the second session about how to get this into your LOS, okay? It's automatically going to be available once they hit submit. But we do surface a needs list for a customer that wants to go in here and provide this information, okay? So automatically, I've got a list of items that they can provide to me based, again, on how they answered questions throughout the process. So my needs list is not very long here for Bobby. I did ask for an account statement from Chase because Bobby didn't connect directly to Chase. He connected directly to Bank of America. So I didn't ask for his bank statements from Bank of America. I do ask for them from Chase because he manually entered those in. And, our process to clear these conditions is very simple. We've got a nice big upload button. Because Bobby is on his laptop here, he just jumps right in to his folders, opens a document, says I'm done, and hits submit, and has now added that document to the portal that I'm going to show you here in about 2 seconds. Now, the other great thing here is that, right, it removed it off the list. So if you're, like me, you like to kind of get down to zero, and we want to make it easy for the customers to provide documentation because honestly, the complete application is fantastic, right? But a complete application with docs is even better, okay? If you can get some of this intel earlier in the process and look at your customers, like again, my example here, I didn't have a property. Okay, I have no idea what I don't really know what I want. I'm just going through, but I'm going to go through the property and maybe I give you my pay stubs and W-2, let me know what's going on, okay? So now you spent a little bit more time on, for sure, but you went through this nice guided process. You gave me more info and you gave me details. Now you're committed to me. When you find the property, what's the likelihood I'm going to go and shop you? Well, probably pretty low because I've gone through this application process with you. I've already given you some of my docs. Okay, so that's why this system really works as customers go through this. Now for pay stubs, this is a second of 3 points of direct-to-source connectivity. If your customer's employer uses one of these top 4 payroll providers, ADP, Paychex, Intuit, or Gusto, I'm going to allow them to drop in their username and password, and it is going to pull in 30 days worth of consecutive pay stubs based on pay type. So if they're paid weekly, it's going to pull 4. If they're paid monthly, it's going to pull 1, and it's automatic. Okay, so you don't have to worry about talking to your customer and explaining to them what consecutive or concurrent means. If they can leverage this connectivity point, it's great. Now, the key differentiator here is it's not just that their pay stub shows ADP, right? You have to have an access, a username and password to jump into these systems directly. And if you can, then yes, you can connect directly, and that's great. Okay. And again, as I did that, it dropped it off my list. The third point of connectivity, which I don't have an example here, is for TurboTax. So if we're asking for tax returns, I'm going to allow the customer, if they use TurboTax, to log into their TurboTax account and pull those tax returns. So when I do it in such a way that I ask for 2 years separately, because we find not everybody uses TurboTax every year, okay? And I also ask about it in a way that if they've used TurboTax they've used it for both years and they use the same username and password, I'm going to allow them to use the same username and password to connect for both years. If they use a different username and password for each year, then they can re-enter, okay? So we make that nice and seamless, and that information comes in automatically. Now for the gift info, this is the third key piece of intelligence that we have. So I talked to you about a guided process and workflow. I talked to you about the field level intelligence that we have that surfaces certain fields based on how questions are answered. The third piece here is our follow-up intelligence, okay, which is pretty dialed in. So here I have a gift letter. Customer said they were going to get a gift for $10,000. So I am going to initiate a process where I could send this to the donor to complete the gift letter. So here I am. I'm going to put in the donor's name, the email address, and the relationship. And when I hit continue, it's going to send a DocuSign document to my donor. It's going to send them an email. They don't have to worry about a username and password. Okay, the email says that Bobby is sending this for his mortgage application. So it'll go over with some nice copy. They open it. They put in their info, and then when they're done, it sends it back to Bobby for him to DocuSign, and then you have a completed gift letter in your documents. You haven't even touched the file. Okay. So again, our intelligence is working such that we're stepping outside of the process to get that donor information on a gift letter. Large deposits. So because Bobby connected directly to for the general asset statement for Bank of America, we are working behind the scenes. We have scanned that statement, and we are flagging anything that's greater than 50% of the monthly qualifying income. So anything that's greater than 50% of the monthly qualifying income, I'm going to ask Bobby to give me an explanation on. Okay. So for anything that they connect directly to the source for, any statement, any organization, doesn't matter. I'm going to flag large deposits for that. Now, in addition to that, we are also looking at ways to do this for manually uploaded statements. And right now we only have it for Bank of America. Okay, so in this example, let's just say instead of me connecting directly to the source for Bank of America, I uploaded a Bank of America statement. We'll scan those statements for the same large deposit logic that we did for our generated asset statement. Okay, and so we're constantly working to build that piece out because this business is moving from docs to data. Okay, you see that with day one certainty, and trust me, everyone else is going to go behind that. Okay, Fannie's rapidly trying to catch up to that. Everybody else will be on the bandwagon soon. Okay, so as we're getting more to data and less about documentation, we're finding out ways to scrub this data and surface information quicker to your customer. So I'm going to use this $6,100 deposit for an example. I'm going to ask them to identify the large deposit. I'm going to ask them what's the source of the deposit, give them a couple options to select from. And depending on what they select, so let's say they say that's a sale of an asset, I'm going to automatically ask for the sale of that asset, that document, that proof of sale. So it's not just about asking for the explanation for that large deposit. In some cases, it's about taking it a step further and saying, well, what additional documentation can you provide to support that explanation? Okay. I'm going to use this $15,000 deposit. Let's say I got a transfer from another account. It's going to ask me, what funds did you transfer from? Is it one of these three that I already have available? Is it another account? If it's another account, I'm going to ask for something. If it's something I already have, let's say the checking account, and hit continue, I'm not going to ask for additional documentation, right? Because you already have that account. You already have that statement in the file. So that's a big key level piece of our intelligence. We're trying to figure out ways to get this information up front, and then it's just automatically available to you from your customer without you having to do anything, okay? Now, where does all this documentation go once they upload it? So you can see I'm not really surfacing that information to the customer. Again, I want to keep it nice and clean for them. Obviously, on your side, you've got a section if you will, in each of these files where all this documentation is being collected, and I'll show you that in the second session. The customer does have a documents tab up here. And when they click that, anything that they have provided to you or they've connected directly on is available here in this tab. And this is available even on their phone. So I'm going to show that in the second session where you could have a customer that's on their phone, you know, on the road, and you can pull up a document and look at it with them. You know, anything they provided to you, they have access to right there. So you can see here I have the generated asset statements for Bank of America. Let's pull one of those up. I'll show you what that looks like. So here's the statement. This is a blend generated statement, okay? We are generating the statement for a couple of reasons. One, again, we got it day one certified, and this is gonna help us to get it approved with other digital systems. Two, this gives us a nice consistency that the feedback we get, especially from operations, is that, you know, I've got 3 Bank of America accounts, and all 3 of these accounts look exactly the same, right? All this information is consistent. The end dates are consistent. If I have multiple accounts, I don't have to worry about the end dates being different, right? All this information is just automatically pulled. Now, I didn't show the customer this document when they pulled it, right? I showed them the data because that's what's important to them. This document's accessible to them if they need it, okay? But on your side, obviously, it's going to be a lot more important, and I'll show you where that information pulls through. But here's the statement, right? Borrower detail, lender detail. You have account details in here. You have a cash flow analysis from your 30, 60-day. Transaction history shows you that 60-day history, okay? I went back because today's the 11th. I went back to the 10th and then pulled 60 days from there. And then we've got a nice colorization there. Debits are red, credits are green. Really easy to go through this. Again, you've got the consistency. Every single one of these generated asset statements are going to look exactly the same. They have the exact same format. They have the exact same start and end date because they're 60 days, okay? So that consistency is something that we're hearing, again, from operations is they love that consistency, okay? Now, FHA, USDA, they're not using these in underwriting yet. Certain private label investors may or may not use them in underwriting yet. That's an internal discussion if you guys are selling maybe jumbo or something to that degree. But regardless of whether or not you're going to get into underwriting, it's still a great piece of intel. If your customer is just shopping, they give you a 60-day transaction history. You know, you've got all that information right there. And if you need to go back at a later date and say, well, I found a great product for you, but it does require 2 months bank statements. Let's say it's FHA. So can you go give me 2 months bank statements for this, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've already looked at it, right? You already know what's going on. So great piece of intel up front. All right, so team, that is all I wanted to show you in this first session. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I know it was an hour's worth of content, and I went through a lot, and I went through it fairly quickly. Let me stop our recording here. And see if there are any additional questions. We got about 3 minutes. I don't see anything in the chat. Any questions, comments, or concerns? We are going to have a second session tomorrow, and like I said, we're going to go over more what I would call loan team specific activities. But anything before we close out for the day? All right, well, I'm going to take silence. Ooh, we do got a chat.